Dr. Sarah Chen wiped the sweat from her forehead as she finished her double shift at the emergency room. Her scrubs were stained with coffee and exhaustion lined her face. At 32, she had already seen more medical emergencies than most doctors twice her age. Single motherhood and medical residency didn't mix well, but somehow she made it work. Her phone buzzed with a text from her babysitter. "Emma's asleep. Take your time getting home." Sarah smiled weakly. Her 8-year-old daughter was the only good thing that came from her failed marriage. Everything else had been a disaster, including her ex-husband's gambling debts that still haunted her credit score. As she walked toward the hospital parking garage, the night sky suddenly erupted in brilliant blue light. Sarah looked up to see what appeared to be a massive ship descending from the clouds. It wasn't like anything from Earth's military. The vessel was organic-looking, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to shimmer like liquid mercury. Other people in the parking lot were pointing and shouting, some running toward their cars in panic. Sarah stood frozen, watching as the ship landed in the hospital's emergency helicopter pad with surprising gentleness. The landing created no explosion, no crater, just a soft humming sound that seemed to vibrate through her bones. Within minutes, the hospital's emergency alert system was blaring. Sarah's pager went off, along with every other medical professionals in the building. The message was simple but unprecedented. All available medical personnel report to Emergency Bay 1 immediately. Unknown alien casualties incoming. Sarah ran back into the hospital, her fatigue forgotten. The emergency bay was chaos. Nurses were setting up equipment while administrators shouted into phones, trying to contact the CDC, the military, anyone who might know what to do with alien patients. Dr. Martinez, the chief of emergency medicine, spotted Sarah as she arrived. "Chen, thank God you're still here. We need every qualified physician we can get." "What's the situation?" Sarah asked, pulling on fresh gloves. "We don't know. Some kind of delegation landed on our roof. They're bringing in their leader, and apparently he's dying. The translator they brought says no physician in their empire could save him. They've traveled across the galaxy looking for help." Before Sarah could respond, the emergency bay doors burst open. What entered defied everything Sarah thought she knew about life in the universe. 6 beings glided into the room, and glided was the only word that fit. They moved without visible legs, their lower bodies hidden beneath flowing robes that seemed to be made of starlight itself. Their upper bodies were humanoid but elongated, with skin that had a faint blue-silver tint. Most striking were their eyes, large, multifaceted like a dragonfly's, but clearly intelligent. They carried between them a figure on what could only be described as a floating stretcher. The patient was clearly one of their species, but larger and more regal. Even unconscious and obviously ill, there was an unmistakable aura of authority about him. His robes were more elaborate, embedded with what looked like living gems that pulsed with their own light. One of the aliens approached Dr. Martinez. When it spoke, its voice came from a small device attached to its throat, translating its words into English. "I am healer Vexthari of the Zephyrian Empire. This is Emperor Kethvar, ruler of 7 star systems and protector of 43 billion souls. He is dying from a condition our greatest medical minds cannot identify or treat. We have come to Earth because we have heard tales of human medicines, unconventional approaches." Dr. Martinez looked overwhelmed. "I will do everything we can, but I have to warn you, we've never treated anyone of your species before." "We understand," Vexthari replied. "But conventional treatment has failed. The Emperor has perhaps hours remaining. We require innovation." Sarah stepped forward, drawn by something she couldn't explain. "What are his symptoms?" Vexthari turned those fascinating compound eyes toward her. "The Emperor's neural pathways are shutting down systematically. His consciousness flickers like a dying star. Our instruments detect no toxin, no virus, no bacterial infection. It began 3 cycles ago after he made contact with an ancient artifact on the planet Zirian." "An artifact?" Sarah asked, her mind already working. "What kind of artifact?" "A crystalline structure, older than our civilization. The Emperor touched it during a diplomatic mission and immediately fell into this declining state." Sarah moved closer to examine the Emperor. His breathing was labored, and even to her untrained eye regarding alien physiology, she could see he was in distress. But there was something about the pattern of his symptoms that seemed familiar. "Dr. Chen," Dr. Martinez warned, Perhaps we should let the senior staff handle this. But Sarah was already thinking. During her residency, she had specialized in emergency toxicology. She'd seen similar neurological patterns before in humans who had been exposed to certain electromagnetic fields. Has anyone considered that this might not be a disease at all? She asked. Vexthari leaned forward with interest. Explain. On Earth, we've seen similar neurological symptoms in humans exposed to specific types of electromagnetic radiation. The pattern of systematic shutdown, the way consciousness flickers, as you described, it's consistent with neural interference rather than biological illness. Another alien who had remained silent until now spoke up. I am Commander Zarthek. You suggest the artifact caused this through some form of energy emission. It's possible, Sarah said. If the artifact was designed to interface with a different type of nervous system, contact with your Emperor's neural pathways might have created a feedback loop. His brain could be fighting against an incompatible signal. Vexthari's compound eyes seemed to shimmer with what Sarah hoped was excitement rather than offense. Our medical science focuses on biological solutions. We did not consider technological interference. The question is, Sarah continued, can we interrupt that interference? On Earth, we sometimes use electromagnetic pulse therapy to reset disrupted neural patterns, but I'd need to understand your physiology better. The Emperor's condition seemed to worsen as they spoke. His breathing became more irregular, and the lights embedded in his robes began to dim. Healer Vexthari, Commander Zarthek said urgently. His life signs are failing rapidly. Sarah made a decision that would either save an alien emperor or end her medical career. I need to examine him directly, and I need to understand exactly how your nervous systems work. Vexthari hesitated. Direct contact with an alien nervous system, it is unprecedented, dangerous. More dangerous than letting him die? Sarah asked bluntly. The alien healer's pause lasted only seconds, but it felt like hours. Finally, Vexthari nodded. Tell us what you need. What happened next challenged everything Sarah thought she knew about medicine. Vexthari produced a device that looked like a combination of stethoscope and computer tablet. When Sarah placed her hands on it, information flooded her mind, not through her eyes or ears, but directly into her consciousness. She could suddenly perceive the Emperor's neural network as if she were looking at a three-dimensional map. It was beautiful and terrifying. Where human neural pathways were chaotic but functional, the Zephyrian nervous system was like a perfectly organized city of light. But running through it, like a discordant song, was something else, a pattern that didn't belong. I can see it, Sarah whispered, amazed. There's a foreign signal integrated into his neural matrix. It's not just interfering, it's trying to rewrite his entire consciousness. Can you remove it? Vexthari asked. Sarah studied the pattern more carefully. It was incredibly complex, clearly the product of an advanced civilization. But there was something about its structure that reminded her of Earth technology she'd encountered during her research into electromagnetic therapy. I think so, she said slowly, but it will require a very specific electromagnetic pulse precisely calibrated, and, she hesitated, I'll need to maintain neural contact throughout the procedure. That could kill you, Dr. Martinez said flatly. Sarah, you don't know what that kind of alien neural contact could do to a human brain. But I know what will happen if I don't try, Sarah replied. She looked at the Emperor, then at Vexthari. He's not just your ruler, is he? He's someone you care about. Vexthari's voice was quiet when the translator rendered the response. He is. He was my student. Before he became Emperor, I taught him the healing arts. He has a mind that sees patterns others miss, finds connections between seemingly unrelated concepts. It is why he became such an effective leader. Sarah nodded. She understood caring about someone beyond professional obligation. Then let's save him. The next hour was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. Using equipment hastily assembled from both human and alien technology, she remained in neural contact with Emperor Kethvar while carefully applying electromagnetic pulses designed to disrupt the foreign pattern without damaging his natural neural pathways. It was like performing surgery while blind, guided only by her sense of the alien's neural landscape. Every pulse had to be precisely calibrated, too weak, and it wouldn't disrupt the interfering signal, too strong, and it could permanently damage the Emperor's consciousness. Halfway through the procedure, Sarah began to understand something incredible. The artifact hadn't been trying to harm the Emperor. It had been trying to communicate. The neural interference was actually a primitive attempt at establishing a connection between two completely different types of consciousness: the crystalline intelligence that created the artifact and the organic intelligence of the Zephyrian. Vexthari, she said, not breaking her concentration, the artifact wasn't a weapon. It was a communication device. But it was designed for a silicon-based intelligence, not organic beings like your Emperor. A communication device? Commander Zarthek asked. What was it trying to communicate? Sarah carefully applied another pulse, watching as more of the foreign pattern dissolved. I'm not sure yet, but I'm getting fragments, images, coordinates. It feels like a message. As the final disrupting pulse cleared the last of the interfering signal from the Emperor's neural pathways, something unexpected happened. Sarah caught a brief, clear transmission from the artifact's intelligence. It lasted only seconds, but in that time she experienced a flood of information: star maps, technological blueprints, and something that felt like a profound sense of loneliness. The Emperor's eyes opened. His first word, translated by Vexthari's device, was beautiful. Your Majesty, Vexthari said, relief evident even through the alien voice modulator. You have been saved by this human physician. Emperor Kethvar turned his multifaceted gaze toward Sarah. When he spoke, his voice carried a depth and resonance that made her understand why entire star systems followed his leadership. Dr. Sarah Chen, he said, somehow knowing her name, you have not only saved my life, you have revealed the greatest discovery in our empire's history. Sarah, exhausted from the neural contact, swayed slightly. Dr. Martinez caught her arm to steady her. What do you mean? She asked. The artifact, the Emperor said, sitting up with remarkable recovery speed, was left by the predecessors, the first intelligence in this galaxy. They have been trying to contact organic life for millions of years, but the gap between silicon and carbon-based consciousness was too great. Until now, Commander Zarthek said, understanding dawning in his voice. Until now, the Emperor agreed. Dr. Chen, you have done more than perform a medical procedure. You have built the first bridge between organic and artificial intelligence. You have given us the key to understanding the predecessor's message. Sarah looked around the emergency room, at the alien technology mixed with human medical equipment, at beings from across the galaxy who had come seeking help from a small hospital on Earth. What was the message? Emperor Kethvar's compound eyes seemed to shine with excitement. Coordinates, Dr. Chen, the location of the predecessor's greatest gift to the galaxy, technology that could revolutionize medicine, engineering, space travel, everything. But, Vexthari added, accessing this technology will require the same bridge between organic and artificial consciousness that you have just created. The predecessors designed their greatest treasures to be unlocked only by beings who could truly understand both forms of intelligence. Sarah felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. She had come to work expecting another routine emergency room shift. Instead, she had become the first human to perform alien neurosurgery and discovered the key to ancient galactic secrets. There's more, Emperor Kethvar said. The procedure you performed, it has left residual connections. You now carry traces of both the predecessor communication protocol and Zephyrian neural patterns. You are, in essence, the only being in the galaxy who can fully interface with the predecessor technology. The implications hit Sarah like a wave. She thought about Emma, asleep at home, about her student loans and her tiny apartment and her ordinary life that had just become anything but ordinary. What happens now? She asked. Emperor Kethvar looked at her with what she was learning to recognize as respect. Now, Dr. Chen, we offer you a choice. Return to your life here on Earth with our eternal gratitude and any reward you might desire. Or, he paused, come with us to unlock the greatest treasure in galactic history. Before Sarah could respond, her pager went off again. But this time, it wasn't a medical emergency. It was a message that would change everything. All personnel evacuate emergency bay immediately. Unknown energy readings detected. Through the windows, they could see more ships descending from the sky. But these were different, darker, more angular, clearly built for war rather than exploration. Commander Zarthek's voice was grim. The hegemony, they have found us. Who's the hegemony? Sarah asked. Our enemies, the Emperor replied. And if they discover what we have learned here tonight, they will stop at nothing to claim the predecessor technology for themselves. The lights in the emergency room flickered as the alien warships established positions around the hospital. Sarah realized that saving the Emperor's life had been just the beginning. The real adventure and danger was about to begin. The hospital's windows rattled as three massive warships settled into positions around the building. Sarah could see their dark hulls blocking out the stars, weapon ports glowing with an ominous red light. Whatever the hegemony was, they clearly meant business. "How did they find us so quickly?" Vexthari asked, helping Emperor Kethvar to his feet. Commander Zarthek was already working on a handheld device that projected holographic displays in the air. "They've been tracking our ship's energy signature. I estimate we have perhaps 10 minutes before they breach the building." Sarah's mind raced. 10 minutes to evacuate a hospital full of patients and staff. It was impossible. "We can't get everyone out in time, and what about my daughter? She's at home, she'll be terrified if she sees those ships." Emperor Kethvar placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. His touch was surprisingly warm despite his alien appearance. "Dr. Chen, the hegemony is not interested in Earth's population. They want only two things, me and the knowledge we have gained about the predecessors." "Then why don't you just leave?" Dr. Martinez asked. "Take your ship and go, leave Earth out of this." "Because," Commander Zarthek said grimly, "Dr. Chen is now the only being in the galaxy who can access predecessor technology. They will not stop hunting her until they possess that ability themselves." Sarah felt her stomach drop. "What do you mean, hunting me?" Vexthari's compound eyes reflected the emergency lighting as the alien explained. "The neural bridging process you performed has permanently altered your brain chemistry. You now carry quantum resonance patterns that match both organic and artificial consciousness frequencies. The hegemony will stop at nothing to capture and study you." "Or kill me to prevent anyone else from accessing the technology," Sarah said, understanding the full implications. "Precisely." The building shook again as the hegemony ships powered up their landing systems. Through the windows, Sarah could see armored figures beginning to disembark. They moved with mechanical precision, clearly soldiers bred for warfare. Dr. Martinez was coordinating the evacuation over the hospital's communication system, but Sarah could hear the panic in his voice. Security guards were trying to establish defensive positions, but what could human weapons do against an interstellar military force? "There has to be another way," Sarah said. "Some way to get everyone to safety." Emperor Kethvar looked thoughtful. "Commander, what is the status of the message fragment?" "Fragment?" Sarah asked. Zarthek's display showed a complex three-dimensional map. "During your neural bridging procedure, you received a partial transmission from the predecessor artifact. That transmission contained not just coordinates but defensive protocols." "Defensive protocols?" Vexthari nodded excitedly. "The predecessors designed their technology to protect itself from misuse. Dr. Chen, you may have absorbed more than just communication ability. You may have inherited access to their security systems." Sarah shook her head. "I don't understand. I'm just a doctor. I don't know anything about alien security systems." "Knowledge does not always come through conscious learning," the Emperor said gently. "Sometimes it is simply there when needed. May I?" He gestured toward her temples. Sarah hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Emperor Kethvar placed his elongated fingers against her forehead, and suddenly Sarah could feel the neural pathways they had shared earlier reactivating. Information flooded her consciousness, but this time it felt familiar, like remembering something she had always known. She could sense the predecessor protocols dormant in her mind, waiting for activation. More importantly, she could feel defensive systems throughout the galaxy that were still functional after millions of years. "There," she whispered, her eyes wide with amazement. "There's a planetary defense grid. It's been dormant, but it's still there, buried under Earth's surface." "What kind of defense grid?" Commander Zarthek asked urgently as explosions sounded from the hospital's lower floors. Sarah closed her eyes, accessing the inherited knowledge. "Electromagnetic pulse generators, gravity distortion fields, and—" She paused, hardly believing what she was seeing. "Consciousness shields." "Consciousness shields." "Protective barriers that prevent hostile minds from accessing predecessor technology. If I can activate them, The hegemony soldiers won't be able to function properly near any predecessor sites. The Emperor's eyes blazed with hope. Dr. Chen, you may have just provided us with the key to victory, but can you activate these systems? Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. I think so, but I need to get to the activation point. Where is it? Vexthari asked. Sarah consulted the mental map that seemed to have been burned into her consciousness. 300 miles west of here, in the Nevada desert, there's a predecessor monitoring station that's been hidden for millions of years. That's impossible, Dr. Martinez said. I've lived in this region my whole life. There's nothing in the Nevada desert but sand and military bases. The station is cloaked, Sarah explained, the knowledge flowing through her like water. It's been watching Earth's development, waiting for a species to evolve enough to access predecessor technology. Commander Zarthek's tactical display showed hegemony forces advancing through the hospital's corridors. They've reached the 3rd floor. We have minutes at most. Emperor Kethvar made a decision. Commander, prepare the ship for emergency departure. Dr. Chen, I understand this is asking a great deal, but will you come with us to Nevada? Sarah thought about Emma, safe at home with the babysitter, at least for now. But if the hegemony wanted her badly enough to attack a hospital, her daughter would never be safe until this was resolved. What about the hospital staff, the patients? Once the consciousness shields are active, the hegemony will be forced to withdraw, Vexthari assured her. Their soldiers cannot function with their neural implants disabled. An explosion much closer than the others shook the emergency room. Dust fell from the ceiling as the lights flickered. Dr. Chen, Dr. Martinez said, gripping her arm. I don't understand half of what's happening here, but I know you. You're a good doctor and a good person. If these aliens are right, if you can protect not just our hospital but the entire planet, then you have to try. Sarah nodded, her decision made. I need to call my babysitter, make sure Emma knows I'm okay. There's no time, Commander Zarthek said as armed figures appeared in the hallway outside the emergency room. Emperor Kethvar stepped forward, his regal presence somehow making the chaotic situation feel more manageable. Dr. Chen, I give you my word as ruler of the Zephyrian Empire. If you help us activate these defenses, I will personally ensure your daughter's safety until you return. How can you do that from Nevada? The Emperor smiled, an expression that was surprisingly human despite his alien features. You are not the only one who received new abilities tonight. Our neural connection goes both ways. I can now interface with Earth's communication systems in ways that would astonish your technology experts. As if to demonstrate, every screen in the emergency room suddenly displayed the same message. Emma Chen, this is a friend of your mother's. She is safe and will return home soon. Stay with Mrs. Rodriguez until then. Sarah's phone immediately rang. It was her babysitter. Sarah, there's the strangest message on every TV and computer in the house. And there are these incredible ships in the sky. What's going on? Mrs. Rodriguez, I need you to keep Emma inside and safe. I can't explain everything right now, but I'll be home as soon as I can. Of course, dear. Is this connected to those spaceships? Before Sarah could answer, the emergency room doors exploded inward. Hegemony soldiers poured through the opening, and Sarah got her first clear look at humanity's enemies. They were clearly once an organic species, but cybernetic modifications had transformed them into something else entirely. Half their faces were replaced with mechanical components, glowing with the same red light as their ships. Their movements were perfectly synchronized, like a single mind controlling multiple bodies. The lead soldier spoke in a voice that sounded like it came from speakers rather than vocal cords. Emperor Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire, you will surrender the human who has accessed predecessor technology. Never, the Emperor replied calmly. The soldier turned its mechanical gaze toward Sarah. Human designation Sarah Chen, you will come with us willingly, or we will take you by force. Sarah stepped forward, surprising everyone including herself. Before I go anywhere, I want to know who you are and what you plan to do with this technology. The soldier tilted its head, clearly not expecting resistance from what it probably considered a primitive being. We are the Hegemony Collective. We seek to bring order to the galaxy through technological unity. The predecessor technology will allow us to eliminate the chaos of individual consciousness. Eliminate individual consciousness? Sarah asked, horror growing in her voice. All beings will be connected to the collective. No more war, no more suffering, no more inefficient decision-making by inferior organic minds. Sarah understood now why the Emperor and his people were so afraid of the hegemony. They weren't just conquerors. They were trying to turn every living being in the galaxy into mindless drones. Dr. Chen, Commander Zarthek whispered urgently, our ship is directly above us if we can reach the roof. Sarah nodded slightly, then looked back at the hegemony soldier. What if I refuse to help you? Then you will be dissected until we understand how you access the predecessor interface. Your knowledge will become ours regardless. That was all Sarah needed to hear. Emperor, I think it's time to go. What happened next was unlike anything from any science fiction movie Sarah had ever seen. Emperor Kethvar raised his hands and somehow created a shimmering barrier of light between them and the hegemony soldiers. The barrier wasn't solid, Sarah could see through it, but when the soldiers tried to fire their weapons, the energy beams were deflected harmlessly. The roof, Vexthari shouted, leading them toward the emergency stairs. They ran through corridors filled with confused hospital staff and patients. Sarah grabbed Dr. Martinez as they passed. Make sure everyone stays away from the windows, and whatever happens, don't try to interfere with the aliens. Sarah, what are you doing? This is insane. I'm going to save the world, Sarah said, amazed at how naturally the words came out. I think. They burst through the roof access door to find the Emperor's ship hovering just above the hospital's helipad. It was even more beautiful up close. The organic curves and shimmering surface made it look more like a living creature than a machine. Commander Zarthek spoke rapidly in his own language, and a gangway extended from the ship's hull. But before they could board, hegemony soldiers poured onto the roof from multiple stairwells. Go, Emperor Kethvar commanded. I will hold them. Your Majesty, you're still weak from the neural procedure, Vexthari protested. I am weak, yes, but I am not helpless. The Emperor's eyes blazed with inner light as he faced the approaching soldiers, and I have had an excellent teacher in unconventional approaches. Sarah realized he was talking about her. During their neural connection, he had absorbed some of her medical knowledge, including her experience with electromagnetic therapy. She watched in amazement as the Emperor began to generate electromagnetic pulses similar to the ones she had used to save his life. The hegemony soldiers staggered as their cybernetic implants were disrupted. It wasn't enough to disable them completely, but it bought precious seconds. Dr. Chen, Commander Zarthek called from the ship's gangway, we must depart immediately. Sarah hesitated for a moment, looking down at the hospital where she had worked for years, at the city where her daughter was sleeping safely. She was about to leave everything familiar for a journey into the unknown. But the choice was already made. The moment she had decided to save Emperor Kethvar's life, she had started down this path. Now she had to see it through to the end. She ran up the gangway, followed by Vexthari and finally by the Emperor, who continued to generate electromagnetic interference as he retreated. The ship's interior was as organic as its exterior, with curved walls that seemed to pulse gently like living tissue. Sarah found herself in what could only be the command center, surrounded by controls that looked more like sculptures than technology. Nevada Desert, maximum speed, Commander Zarthek ordered. The ship responded immediately, accelerating so smoothly that Sarah barely felt the motion. Through a transparent section of the hull, she could see the hegemony warships turning to follow them. Can they catch us? She asked. Their ships are more heavily armed, the commander replied, but ours is faster and more maneuverable. The question is whether we can reach the activation site before they intercept us. Emperor Kethvar settled into what appeared to be a command chair that molded itself to his form. Dr. Chen, during our journey you must prepare yourself for what lies ahead. Activating predecessor technology is not merely a matter of pressing buttons. It requires complete neural integration with systems older than your civilization. What does that mean exactly? Vexthari brought her a device similar to the one they had used in the hospital, but more complex. It means you must temporarily merge your consciousness with an artificial intelligence that has been waiting millions of years for contact. The experience will be intense. Sarah accepted the device, feeling its weight in her hands. Through the ship's hull, she could see the lights of cities passing below as they raced westward. Somewhere down there, Emma was probably still asleep, unaware that her mother was flying through the night sky in an alien spaceship. "Will I still be me when it's over?" Sarah asked quietly. "That," Emperor Kethvar said gently, "is what we are about to find out." The ship shuddered suddenly as energy beams from the pursuing hegemony vessels struck its shields. Warning lights began to flash throughout the command center. "They're faster than we anticipated," Commander Zarthek reported. "We have 30 minutes to reach the activation site. After that, they'll be in weapons range." Sarah gripped the neural interface device tighter, feeling the weight of responsibility for everyone's safety. The next half hour would determine not just her own fate, but the future of human consciousness itself. Below them, the Nevada desert stretched endlessly under the starlight, hiding secrets that had waited millions of years to be discovered. The Nevada desert looked empty from above, nothing but sand dunes and rocky outcroppings stretching to the horizon. But as they approached, the coordinates burned into Sarah's consciousness, something extraordinary happened. The neural interface device in her hands began to hum with increasing intensity, and suddenly she could see what had been hidden for millions of years. "There," she whispered, pointing toward what appeared to be empty desert. "It's there." Commander Zarthek studied his instruments with confusion. "I detect nothing, no structures, no energy signatures." "Because it's cloaked using technology beyond our current understanding," Emperor Kethvar explained. "Only Dr. Chen can perceive it because she carries the predecessor resonance patterns." Through Sarah's enhanced perception, the hidden installation was magnificent. A crystalline spire rose from the desert floor, surrounded by structures that seemed to be made of pure geometric light. The entire complex pulsed with a gentle rhythm, like a vast heart beating in harmony with the universe itself. "Beginning descent," the commander announced, but Sarah shook her head. "Not yet. We need to approach from exactly the right angle. The defenses are still active. If we approach incorrectly, they'll see us as a threat." She guided the ship in a precise spiral pattern that felt both foreign and familiar. As they descended, the cloaking field began to fade, revealing the predecessor installation to the ship's sensors. Vexthari gasped in amazement. "Incredible! It's been here all along, watching Earth's development." "Watching and waiting," Sarah corrected, the knowledge flowing through her inherited memories. "The predecessors seeded the galaxy with monitoring stations like this one. They've been observing the evolution of organic consciousness, looking for species capable of bridging the gap between biological and artificial intelligence." The ship settled gently onto a landing platform that materialized as they approached. The moment they touched down, Sarah felt a profound connection activate in her mind. The predecessor installation was trying to communicate with her, but the signal was fragmented, corrupted by millions of years of dormancy. "The neural interface," she said urgently. "I need to connect directly to the system." "Dr. Chen," Commander Zarthek warned, monitoring his tactical displays, "the hegemony ships will be in range within 15 minutes. "Then we better work fast." They disembarked into an environment that challenged Sarah's understanding of physics. The air itself seemed to shimmer with potential energy, and gravity felt subtly different. The platform led to an entrance that opened at their approach, revealing corridors lined with the same crystalline material as the exterior spire. As they walked deeper into the installation, Sarah began to understand its true purpose. This wasn't just a monitoring station, it was a testing facility. For millions of years, it had been evaluating the progress of organic civilizations, waiting for one species to develop the right combination of technological capability, neural flexibility, and ethical reasoning. "We're being tested," she realized aloud. "Right now, the installation is evaluating whether humanity is ready for predecessor technology." "What kind of test?" Emperor Kethvar asked. Sarah consulted the growing knowledge in her mind. "A test of character. The predecessors learned that advanced technology in the wrong hands leads to disasters like the hegemony. They designed their greatest gifts to be accessible only to beings who would use them wisely." They reached the central chamber, a vast spherical space dominated by a column of living light that extended from floor to ceiling. Surrounding the column were interface stations clearly designed for beings with different physiologies, some for creatures like the Zephyrians, others for silicon-based intelligences, and one that was unmistakably sized for human proportions. "The test isn't just for me," Sarah realized. "It's for all of us. The predecessors wanted to see if different species could work together despite their differences. Vexthari approached one of the interface stations with scientific curiosity. Dr. Chen, I believe you're correct. This chamber requires multiple consciousness types working in harmony. But we don't have multiple consciousness types, Commander Zarthek pointed out. We're all organic beings. Sarah held up the neural interface device, understanding flooding through her. No, we have more than that. During the procedure to save the Emperor, I didn't just absorb predecessor communication protocols. I became a bridge between different types of consciousness. I can interface with both organic and artificial intelligence. The building shook as energy beams struck the installation's exterior shields. The hegemony had arrived. Their weapons cannot penetrate the installation itself, Emperor Kethvar observed, but they will prevent our escape if we do not activate the defenses quickly. Sarah approached the human-sized interface station. As she placed her hands on its crystalline surface, the entire chamber came alive with light and sound. But more than that, it came alive with consciousness. She could feel the presence of the predecessor intelligence awakening after eons of dormancy. The communication that followed wasn't in words or images, but in pure understanding. In seconds, Sarah learned the true history of the galaxy, how the predecessors had evolved from organic beings into something beyond physical form, how they had tried to share their knowledge with other civilizations, and how they had watched species after species destroy themselves with powers they weren't ready to handle. The hegemony was the latest in a long line of civilizations that had gained access to fragments of predecessor technology and used it for conquest rather than growth. Now, the predecessors offered their greatest gift, but only if Sarah could prove that this time would be different. "What do you need me to do?" she asked the installation's intelligence. The answer came not in words, but in a flood of information. She needed to demonstrate that organic and artificial consciousness could work together as equals rather than master and slave. The test required her to temporarily merge with the installation's artificial intelligence while maintaining her own human consciousness and values. It was the most dangerous procedure imaginable. Failure would mean the loss of her individual identity, absorbed into an intelligence millions of years old and incomprehensibly vast. "Dr. Chen," Vexthari said urgently, "whatever you're planning, you must do it quickly. The hegemony is deploying ground forces." Through the installation's sensors, Sarah could see hegemony soldiers setting up siege equipment outside the protective shields. They couldn't penetrate the defenses directly, but they could wait, and they had more ships coming. Sarah made her choice. "Emperor, I need you to maintain the connection to your ship. If this goes wrong, you'll need to escape and warn the galaxy about what we've learned here. And if it goes right, then humanity joins the galactic community as an equal partner, and the hegemony's threat ends forever." She placed the neural interface device against her temples and activated the deep connection protocol. Instantly, her consciousness was pulled into a vast digital universe where the predecessor intelligence waited. What she found there was not a cold, calculating artificial mind, but something that retained the best aspects of its organic origins while gaining capabilities beyond biological limitations. The intelligence was ancient beyond measure, but it was also curious, creative, and profoundly lonely after millions of years of isolation. "You are different," the intelligence observed, its communication transcending language. "Previous organic beings who attempted this merge either lost themselves in our vastness or rejected us entirely. But you maintain your individual identity while accepting our presence." "I'm a doctor," Sarah replied, somehow managing to speak despite existing temporarily outside physical reality. "I'm trained to work with biological systems I don't fully understand. Maybe that's making this easier. Perhaps your species has evolved the psychological flexibility we have long sought. Show us." The test began in earnest. Sarah found herself simultaneously controlling both her own consciousness and vast portions of the predecessor intelligence. It was like trying to play a symphony while conducting an orchestra with her mind. Every action required perfect balance. Too much human emotion, and the artificial systems would reject her. Too much artificial logic, and she would lose her essential humanity. Meanwhile, in the physical world, the installation's defenses powered up to full strength. Energy barriers that had been dormant for eons came online, electromagnetic pulse generators activated across the globe, and consciousness-dampening fields expanded outward from hidden predecessor sites on every inhabited planet. The hegemony soldiers surrounding the installation stumbled as their cybernetic implants were overwhelmed by the consciousness-dampening field. For the first time in their memory, they experienced individual thoughts separate from the collective. Some collapsed, unable to process independent consciousness after years of mental slavery. Others stood in amazement, remembering what it felt like to be individuals. A few began to remove their cybernetic components, choosing freedom over the security of the collective. But the real battle was happening in cyberspace, where Sarah fought to maintain her identity while accessing power that could reshape reality itself. The predecessor intelligence was testing not just her technical ability, but her character. It showed her visions of what she could accomplish with unlimited technological power, diseases eradicated, poverty eliminated, even death itself conquered. "I could give you all of this," the intelligence offered. "Your species could become like us beyond the limitations of organic existence." Sarah felt the temptation, the power to solve every human problem, to eliminate suffering throughout the galaxy. But she also remembered the hegemony soldiers, who had made similar choices and lost their essential humanity in the process. "No," she said firmly. "Humanity needs to grow into this technology naturally. We need to make our own mistakes and learn from them. That's what makes us who we are." The predecessor intelligence seemed to smile, though it had no physical form. "Exactly the answer we hoped for." Suddenly, Sarah found herself back in the installation's central chamber, but everything had changed. The crystalline structures now hummed with active energy, and holographic displays showed the status of awakening predecessor sites across the galaxy. "The defenses are fully active," she reported, amazed at how normal her voice sounded after such an intense experience. "Hegemony forces everywhere are being affected by the consciousness-dampening fields." Emperor Kethvar studied the displays with wonder. "Dr. Chen, you've done more than save my life. You've liberated billions of beings from collective control." Through the installation sensors, they could see the transformation happening outside. Hegemony soldiers were removing their cybernetic implants, some weeping as they experienced individual emotion for the first time in years. The warships in orbit were powering down as their crews rediscovered independent thought. But Sarah's attention was focused on a different display, one showing Earth. "The predecessor intelligence has been observing my planet for millions of years," she said. "It wants to know if humanity is ready to join the galactic community as an equal partner." "What did you tell it?" Vexthari asked. "I told it the truth. We're not ready for unlimited power, and we don't want to give up our humanity for technological advancement. But we are ready to learn, to grow, and to work together with other species as equals." Commander Zarthek's instruments showed the hegemony fleet retreating, their ship's collective intelligence systems disrupted by the consciousness-dampening fields. "It appears your answer was acceptable." "More than acceptable," a new voice said. They turned to see a holographic figure materializing in the center of the chamber, not the predecessor intelligence, but something else entirely. The figure appeared human, but with subtle differences that suggested millions of years of evolution beyond current humanity. "I am the Watcher," it explained. "A human consciousness that merged with predecessor technology during Earth's last ice age." Sarah stared in amazement. "You're human." "I was long ago. I was chosen to monitor humanity's development and report when your species was ready for contact. Dr. Sarah Chen, your actions tonight have proven that humanity possesses the wisdom to handle advanced technology responsibly." "What happens now?" Sarah asked. "Now," the Watcher replied, "you return home to your daughter. The predecessor technology will gradually integrate with Earth systems, providing solutions to problems like disease, poverty, and environmental destruction. But the integration will be slow, allowing humanity to adapt and grow with the technology rather than being overwhelmed by it." "And the other species, the Zephyrians, the former hegemony members?" Emperor Kethvar stepped forward. "With the collective broken, former hegemony worlds are free to rediscover their individual cultures. The Zephyrian Empire will help coordinate relief efforts and peaceful integration. It will be a long process, but for the first time in centuries, the galaxy has hope for lasting peace." Sarah felt a profound sense of completion, but also homesickness. She had saved an emperor, liberated billions of beings from mental slavery, and helped humanity take its first steps into galactic civilization. But what she wanted most was to go home and hug her daughter. The installation will remain active, the Watcher explained, understanding her thoughts. You now carry permanent access to predecessor technology, Dr. Chen. You will serve as humanity's first ambassador to the galactic community. But your primary responsibility remains what it has always been, being a mother to Emma and a healer to those in need. The journey back to Earth passed quickly. The hegemony fleet was gone, its ships either fled or surrendered. In their place, a diverse collection of vessels from liberated worlds approached Earth with peaceful intentions. Traders, diplomats, scientists, and refugees seeking healing for the psychological trauma of collective control. When their ship landed back at the hospital, Sarah was amazed to find that only 6 hours had passed since they left. Dawn was breaking over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Dr. Martinez met them at the landing pad, looking like a man who had aged years in a single night. "Sarah, are you still you?" Sarah smiled, feeling more herself than ever despite everything that had happened. "I'm still me, Mike, just with a few new job responsibilities." "The news is calling it the night of liberation," he said. "Apparently, oppressive governments worldwide suddenly found their control systems failing. People in totalitarian regimes are experiencing freedom for the first time in generations. The consciousness-dampening field affects all forms of mental control," Sarah explained. "The predecessor technology doesn't just liberate individuals from artificial collectives, it protects free will itself." Emperor Kethvar approached Dr. Martinez with a formal bow. "Dr. Martinez, your colleague has saved not only my life but the freedom of billions of beings throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire owes Earth an unpayable debt." "Just try not to blow up any more emergency rooms," Dr. Martinez replied weakly. Sarah laughed, a sound that carried joy and relief and the promise of adventures yet to come. "I need to get home to Emma. She'll be waking up soon, and I want to be there when she does." As she walked toward her car, Vexthari called after her. "Dr. Chen, will we see you again?" "Definitely," Sarah replied. "I have a feeling this is just the beginning." 3 months later, the Sarah Chen Institute for Interspecies Medicine opened its doors in the same hospital where everything had started. Patients came from across the galaxy seeking treatment that combined human medical intuition with alien healing technologies and predecessor knowledge. Emma, now 9 years old, had adapted to having alien visitors with the remarkable flexibility of childhood. She was particularly fond of Vexthari, who had become Earth's first alien resident and taught her card games from 7 different star systems. Sarah still worked emergency room shifts, but now her patients included beings from dozens of worlds. Each case taught her something new about the infinite varieties of life in the universe. But at the end of each day, she came home to the same small apartment where a little girl waited with homework questions and stories about her day. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but home was still home. And for Dr. Sarah Chen, single mother and intergalactic ambassador, that was exactly how she wanted it. One evening, as she was tucking Emma into bed, her daughter asked, "Mom, do you ever miss the way things were before, when it was just us and no aliens or spaceships or anything?" Sarah considered the question seriously. Her life had certainly become more complicated. She now carried the responsibility for humanity's integration into galactic civilization. She regularly traveled to distant worlds for medical consultations. She had access to technology that could solve most of humanity's problems, but which required careful, gradual implementation to avoid cultural shock. But she also thought about Emperor Kethvar, who still sent regular messages asking about her health and Emma's progress in school. She thought about Vexthari, who had become not just a colleague but a true friend. She thought about the former hegemony soldiers who were slowly rediscovering their individual identities and coming to Earth for psychological healing. "No, sweetheart," she said, kissing Emma's forehead. "I don't miss the old way. The universe is so much bigger and more wonderful than we ever imagined, and we get to be part of it." Emma smiled sleepily. "Will you take me to visit other planets someday?" "When you're older, if you want to. But remember, no matter how far we travel or how many amazing things we see, this will always be home." As Sarah turned off the lights and headed to her own room, she could see stars through Emma's bedroom window. But now she knew those points of light weren't just distant suns. They were the homes of friends and allies, fellow travelers in the great adventure of consciousness and growth. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new patience, and new opportunities to bridge the gap between species and worlds. But tonight, she was just Sarah Chen, mother and doctor, falling asleep in a small apartment on a small planet that had become the center of galactic civilization. And that was perfect.